If getting out of a chair now takes hands and a little push, if the stairs in your own home have started to feel like a small mountain, if you've caught yourself with a railing just to steady your legs, please don't write that off as just getting older. What's actually happening is that your leg muscles are losing strength faster than almost any other muscle group in your body, and most people don't find out why until after they've already fallen. Today I'm giving you 7 breakfast foods that target exactly this: the blood flow, the amino acids, and the nerve signals your legs depend on to stay strong and steady. And I have to tell you now, the food at number 1 isn't a supplement, and it isn't expensive, but it changes how much oxygen actually reaches your leg muscles the moment you stand up. Almost nobody talks about it. Stay with me, because by the time we get there, you'll understand exactly what's been working against your legs and exactly what to put on your plate tomorrow morning to start turning it around. Before we get into the list, the very last food is the one people ask me about the most, because once you understand what it does to the blood vessels feeding your legs, you probably won't look at your breakfast the same way again. So stay with me all the way to the end. Quick favor before we start: drop your age and where you're watching from in the comments. Whether you're 63 or 88, I read every comment, and your story might be exactly what someone else scrolling through today needs to see. I've spent years working with people whose legs simply stopped cooperating with them the way they used to, not because they'd stopped trying, but because their breakfast, without them realizing it, was working against them. Eleanor, a 68-year-old former nurse from Duluth, Minnesota, came to me after her second fall in 8 months. She could still walk her dog around the block, but standing up from the couch had become a two-handed operation, and she'd quietly stopped using the basement stairs. When we looked at her mornings, most days she skipped breakfast entirely, and on the days she didn't, it was toast and black coffee, nothing that gave her legs what they actually needed to rebuild. A few months after adding foods like the ones you're about to hear, Eleanor told me she'd stood up from a low chair at her granddaughter's dance recital without thinking about it. The first time in over a year she hadn't braced herself first. That's the kind of change we're talking about. Let's get into it, starting with number 7. Number 7 might already be sitting in your fridge, and it's earned its spot for a more specific reason than most people realize. Berries are rich in anthocyanins, the pigments that give them their deep blue, purple, and red color. In a meta-analysis pooling 24 clinical trials, anthocyanin-rich foods measurably improved how well the lining of your blood vessels relaxes and widens, a direct test of how easily oxygen-rich blood can reach a working muscle. And in a more targeted trial that looked specifically at adults aged 65 to 80, drinking a wild blueberry supplement daily for 12 weeks meaningfully improved that same blood vessel response and lowered blood pressure compared to a placebo. Here's how to use it: a half cup to a full cup of blueberries, blackberries, or dark cherries with your breakfast. Fresh or frozen both count. Better blood vessel function means more oxygen-rich blood reaching your leg muscles the moment you stand, walk, or climb, which is exactly the mechanism the rest of this list is going to build on. But berries mainly support the environment around your muscles. Number 6 is where we start talking about the signal that tells your leg muscles when to actually fire. A small handful of walnuts each morning is quietly doing something for your legs that most people assume only fish oil can do. Walnuts are one of the only plant foods with a meaningful amount of omega-3 fat, and they're also a genuinely rich source of magnesium. Magnesium is a cofactor in more than 300 enzyme reactions in your body, including the nerve signals that tell your leg muscles precisely when to contract and when to release. At the same time, the omega-3s in walnuts help quiet the low-grade inflammation that slowly wears down aging muscle tissue from the inside. A quarter cup scattered over yogurt or oatmeal is enough. People who add this in consistently describe their steps feeling more controlled, less of that sluggish, dragging feeling in the legs by mid-morning. Foods 7 and 6 set the stage. Number 5 is where we start actually rebuilding the muscle itself. Number 5 is about as humble as breakfast food gets, and that's exactly why people overlook it. A single cup of cooked lentils delivers around 730 milligrams of potassium, one of the core electrolytes your nervous system uses to tell your leg muscles to contract and relax properly. Fall short on it, and your legs can start to feel weak, sluggish, or tired far earlier in the day than they should. That same cup also brings about 18 grams of plant protein and a heavy dose of fiber, which helps keep your energy and your legs steady instead of crashing by mid-morning. A savory breakfast bowl with a half cup of lentils or a simple lentil hash with your eggs does the job. People notice they can get through a longer walk or a full grocery trip without that familiar fatigue setting in halfway through. Lentils are a plant protein, but there's a very specific kind of protein your legs need even more of after 60, and that brings us to number 4. Doctors sometimes call this the fastest way to flip the muscle-building switch back on in an aging body. Here's what's happening under the surface. As we get older, our muscles develop what researchers call anabolic resistance. They simply don't respond to protein the way they used to. A meal that would have triggered muscle repair easily at 40 barely registers at 70. Research on this leucine threshold suggests older adults need roughly 50% more of the amino acid leucine in a single meal than younger adults do to fully flip that switch back on, somewhere around 2.5 to 3 grams. A full cup of plain Greek yogurt gets you close to that number in one sitting, thanks to its concentrated casein and whey proteins. Choose plain, full-fat Greek yogurt if you can. The fat helps you absorb other nutrients on this list. A full cup with breakfast is enough to start that repair process working in your favor instead of against you. I want to tell you about Walter, 74, from Boise, Idaho. Walter had spent 30 years tending a half-acre vegetable garden, and 2 years ago, he quietly gave it up. Kneeling was fine. It was standing back up that had become almost impossible without holding on to something. He told me he assumed that was just what happened to a man his age. It wasn't a single food that changed things for Walter. It was consistency, working several of the foods on this list into his mornings, week after week. By that summer, he was back in the garden. He sent me a photo of his tomato plants with a note that just said, "Legs held up fine today." If this is helping you understand what your legs have actually been missing, hit subscribe. It costs nothing. And it tells me to keep making videos like this one. And if you know someone who started avoiding stairs or who grabs furniture to stand up, send them this video. It might be exactly what they need today. Now, let's keep going. Number 3 is next. Eggs get recommended so often that people tune the advice out. But there's a piece of the egg story that almost never gets connected to your legs specifically. Egg yolks are one of the few natural whole food sources of vitamin D. And vitamin D isn't just a bone nutrient. Research looking at quadriceps strength, the muscle group that does the heavy lifting every time you stand up or climb a step, has found a measurable positive correlation between vitamin D levels and how strong that muscle is. On 4 risks specifically, the honest picture is more nuanced than headlines usually make it sound. A large recent analysis, covering close to 59,000 older adults, found that supplementing with 800 to 1,000 IU of vitamin D daily was linked to a 15 to 22% lower rate of falls, with the strongest benefit showing up in adults who are actually low in vitamin D to begin with. Pair that with the fact that eggs also deliver all 9 essential amino acids your body can't make on its own, and you have a genuinely complete package for legs that are trying to rebuild. Eat the whole egg, yolk included. That's where the vitamin D lives. 2 eggs, scrambled, poached, or soft-boiled, is a solid place to start. The next food takes this even further, because it's one of the very few foods that delivers protein and vitamin D together, at levels most other foods simply can't match. Number 2 might feel like a splurge, but the research behind it is hard to ignore. Fatty fish, like salmon, are rich in omega-3 fats. In a study out of Washington University, adults over 60 who added about 4 grams a day of fish oil derived omega-3s for 8 weeks showed a substantially bigger muscle-building response to the protein. And insulin in a meal essentially, their muscles became more responsive to the food already in front of them, which is the exact thing anabolic resistance normally blocks. In a much larger well-known study called the Hertfordshire Cohort Study, which followed close to 3,000 older men and women, fatty fish intake turned out to be the single strongest dietary predictor of grip strength, a marker doctors often use as a stand-in for overall muscle health, legs included. Aim for fish on your plate 2 to 3 times a week, leftover salmon flaked over your morning eggs, or smoked salmon alongside your Greek yogurt. Both work. People who make this a habit often describe less soreness after activity and legs that simply feel more resilient day to day. That's a powerful one, but it's not the food I promised you at the start of this video, the one that does something for the blood flow in your legs that nothing else on this list can do. Here it is. The one almost nobody talks about. Beets contain natural compounds called nitrates. Once you eat them, your body converts those nitrates into nitric oxide, a molecule that relaxes and widens your blood vessels, allowing more oxygen-carrying blood to reach working muscle. In a clinical study on adults in their 70s, a single dose of beetroot significantly sped up how quickly muscle resaturated with oxygen after exertion and measurably reduced how much strength people lost in the half hour after exercising, compared to a placebo. That same nitrate pathway is why separate research on dietary nitrate has found it lowers the amount of oxygen your body needs just to walk at a normal pace, meaning the same walk that used to leave. You winded can start to feel easier, a finding researchers studying aging specifically flag as important for staying independent later in life. This is the piece Eleanor's plan was missing for years, and once we added it, she said something I still remember: standing up doesn't feel like a decision anymore, it just happens. You can roast beets and add them to your breakfast plate, blend them into a smoothie, or have a small glass of beet juice a few times a week. It's simple, it's inexpensive, and it works directly on the blood flow that every other food on this list depends on. 7 foods: berries for your blood vessels, walnuts for the nerve signal, lentils for steady energy, Greek yogurt to flip the muscle-building switch back on, eggs for vitamin D and complete protein, fatty fish to turn up your body's repair signal, and beets to get the oxygen where it needs to go in the first place. None of this is about becoming a different person. It's about getting back the version of you that stood up without thinking about it, that took the stairs without a second thought, that didn't have to plan a walk around how tired your legs might get. Eleanor has that back. Walter has that back, and starting tomorrow morning you can start building it back too. Before you go, tell me in the comments, which of these 7 surprised you the most? And if this video gave you something useful, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. This video is for general educational purposes and isn't a substitute for advice from your own doctor. Especially if you take medication, have kidney issues, or have a diagnosed health condition. Please talk to your physician before making changes to your diet. Thank you for spending this time with me. I'll see you in the next one.